All right, so this book has been a long time coming, and I'm here with the guy who would not stop hounding me to read this book. My good friend Matt Dennion.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Yeah, Tyler, I've been dying to discuss this book with you and get your thoughts on it. So yeah, I've been on you about it for a while. I know.
Yep, but certain things were kind of keeping me from getting the book, but thankfully I now have it, and we're going to be talking about Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater. This is the big Godzilla crossover where Godzilla doesn't fight another monster, kinda. This is where he fights the public domain.
Yeah. I think a concept that kind of caught us all off guard when we saw it, because it was like, how's that going to work out? But we'll talk about how it worked out.
Yeah. So this is written and drawn by Tom's. I can't pronounce it. Scully. I think that's how you say the last name.
In interviews, I think I've seen it as Scioli.
Scioli, yeah. Who I'm familiar with because he did G.I. Joe versus Transformers.
Yes.
And that one was an interesting take. And he has this very unique way of drawing and wordplay.
Yes.
Like, it feels like this dude could have... You could have pulled this book out of the 30s.
Yes, it's extremely stylized, which I don't know if I would like it in most settings, honestly, but I feel like for what he was trying to go for here, it fits better.
Yeah, it really does fit better. So, yeah. I also, I think it's interesting that, now, the Great Gatsby was in public domain, and he, apparently he waited for Gatsby to be in public domain to do this book.
Yeah, apparently that's the case.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have Godzilla fighting a bunch of literary characters, which, again, was something no one had on their bingo card when it came to Godzilla crossovers. Yeah.
For sure.
So the story is that this is set in the 20s, and Gatsby has basically... during a party, Godzilla attacks the city, and Gatsby, after his love is injured, he's like, I'm going to create G-Force, which is short in here for Gatsby Force, and kill Godzilla, and also work with a bunch of other interesting people along the way to kill him. So it's actually it's very... I'm kind of curious if Scully... I cannot pronounce that last name. Scioli. I wonder if Scioli was inspired by League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I got a lot of those vibes in this, yes. I think he was inspired by League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He just needed the linchpin-obsessed character, I think, to fall into the public domain to make this work. So he waited for Gatsby. So if you haven't read the book or seen one of the movie adaptations, Gatsby is sort of like a misguided Batman in a respect, in that where Batman becomes obsessed, or Bruce Wayne becomes obsessed and becomes Batman to fight crime and uses his wealth for that. Gatsby's not nearly as altruistic, and he becomes obsessed basically with getting this woman, Daisy, who he sees as the love of his life. She's married to another guy. Again, if you read the book, they're all kind of not cool people. They're all cheating on each other and trying to figure out how to do it. But I think the key component here is Gatsby's being obsessed with the love of his life, so that when Godzilla threatens her, he decides to devote all of his resources into stopping Godzilla. Which, because he's not really altruistic, but because in his mind, her Daisy, this woman that he's idolized, and put her in an ivory tower, he has to stop her.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of cool. I think that's kind of a neat idea of taking Gatsby's obsessions as well as his wealth, and kind of staying true to the book. That's the other thing, is that he stays true to all the book characters. He doesn't try to vastly alter them.
No, which I thought was good, because it is especially as you get further into something like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Alan Moore really does start to deviate from how the characters are originally portrayed in the books. But in this case, they're all pretty true to how the characters that appear as how they're portrayed in the books, I think. What would you say?
Yeah, I do enjoy it. And also, Scully's artwork, There are some legit moments where it's like, damn, that is really good. Um,
Yes.
like I think my favorite image in the entire book is in book one. Well, first off, there's this 2-page spread of like Godzilla fighting these World War One planes, and it's just awesome.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
But I think my favorite of all the images is where Godzilla's in, I think, New York, and like you don't see. It's kind of terrifying. How do I explain it? Like it's a image of Godzilla in the background of New York, and you don't see his face, but you see like the flashing of his teeth and his eyes. It's like it reminded me a lot of like analog horror.
Yeah, that's very much what it was like, and the art style fits because if you were to look at novels from the early 20s, a lot of them would have that kind of art style that Skill uses throughout the comic book, right?
Yeah, this is, for those wondering, this is the image I'm talking about. Just the New York lights, and you see his eyes and teeth and barely his face. I'm like, Jesus, that is like, again, some straight up analog horror.
Yeah, yeah. So, like as you said, after the attack, Gatsby forms G-Force, which it was kind of a neat play that it's for Gatsby Force. But in order to do that, he recruits some interesting help, both real life historical people and fictional people. First, he kind of goes to Thomas Edison, and what I kind of thought was interesting is like they do kind of mention that Edison was more known for stealing people's ideas than for actually making stuff himself, right?
Yeah, I love that part where Jules Verne is like he's talking to like Verne, and who's a cyborg, and he's like, you literally went to the one capitalist who has no thought in his fucking brain, but that's all of you in general.
Yeah, that was cool. And the cyborg Jules Verne I thought was interesting. So I think after reading the story, I was like, why did they go with cyborg Jules Verne here and just not like one of his characters, like a Captain Nemo? And I think the reason they did that was just to save on the amount of characters they were going to put into this, because they end up using like sort of like a Nautilus type thing, and as from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they utilize the giant cannon from the Earth to the Moon. They utilize the airship from Master of the World. They utilize like sort of a steam-powered giant tank from the Steam House. So I think it was like we could have like 5 different characters from Jules Verne, or just like to save on time, make him like a futuristic cyborg Jules Verne, right? That's what I took it as. What did you think about like that voice?
Plus, there's always the chance of like we do this again with a sequel and have Nemo there.
Yeah, I think that's another possibility for sure. They also include Sherlock Holmes comes into play, literally standing inside a Godzilla footstep when we first meet him.
Yeah, I like this idea of old man Sherlock Holmes, who's like he's trying to figure out the mystery of Godzilla, but also like this is an old man and the age is weighing on him. And I like the take on Watson too.
Yeah. So the Sherlock Holmes is kind of like if you've ever seen Mr. Holmes, where Ian McKellen plays like a much older Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Really good movie, but it's kind of like the take there. And then Watson, they call him, call her his niece, and it's like, is she Watson's daughter or maybe even granddaughter? But she's also with Doctor Two and has become kind of like helps take care of him because of his advanced age as well. So that was like a neat play there.
Yeah. So I like that. I was actually surprised of where they go with his character, which ties into the character I think we've been kind of saving for last, Dracula.
Yes. Yeah, so the way Dracula ties in is cool. So as the story progresses, we do meet all these characters in the first issue, where Dracula just kind of like becomes interested in Godzilla, but we don't see a ton else from there. The other character who does come into play as well is the Time Traveler from the Time Machine, who plays a big role. So the Time Traveler comes back, and he's very cryptic, but because he's from the future, he knows kind of what happens and what Godzilla's going to do. I believe he's the one who like says this character is, or this thing's called Godzilla because he's from the future and knows when it's been identified. So we do get this like interesting Godzilla attack first on New York, like you said, where the Gatsby force shows up kind of with tanks and planes, and not so much drives him away as Godzilla like wrecks the city and leaves, sort of like in the 54 movie, where like the planes show up and like, do they drive him away, or does Godzilla just be like, I know what I need to do here, and leaves? But then we get into book two, which is where it really picks up, right?
Yeah. Book two is interesting because now you have all these characters coming together, and you also see that like Gatsby's just kind of like to hell with everything. Let's just give it like I don't care what it takes. Let's kill him. Also, and I know they've done this before in other Godzilla media. In book one, they do have him sink the Titanic.
Yeah, they do, which is pretty neat. There's like this cool line where it's like, oh, it's an iceberg redhead, and some dude's like, icebergs don't have eyes.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty neat. This was like a throwaway thing. Anyway, when we get to book two, there's a couple interesting things. One is, and this is a very Leave Your Stone Gentleman type of thing, they specifically pursue Godzilla in a yellow submarine, which I'm sure is a like nod to the Beatles song and movie. Right?
Yeah, there's no way it isn't.
Right, right. So they're pretty cool undersea battle, and they do have Jules Verne sort of create some of early predecessors to the weapons we would see in Godzilla movies. Right, like there's like a sonic cannon type of thing that they use in addition to the normal armaments of a submarine. As it's all going on, too, by the way, you continue to get, as you said, they stay true to the story of Gatsby with him pursuing Daisy, even though her husband is there as well.
Yeah.
But it leads to a climax where, like, they basically used a ton of Jules Verne's ideas to turn Paris into, like, this giant city trap, right? I mean, if you're going to talk about that part, except talking like that.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I liked how, like, again, it's the 1920s, 30s era. So how are you going to pit that against Godzilla? Well, you have really intelligent people put together, and I have this feeling that, like, there had to have. It feels like some of the tech was a reference to Metropolis.
Yes, not Superman's Metropolis, but you're referring to like the silent, what's it, Fritz Lang film, I think.
Yeah, the Fritz Lang film.
Yeah, I definitely got that sense too with some of the weapons that were utilized. They did things like they had the cannons sort of from the Earth to the moon, but instead of like using for transport, it's used as a weapon. There's a kind of really funny scene where they use the Arch de Triomphe to like trap Godzilla and spin him around at super speed.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. They also, I took this as a direct nod to the movie Gorgo, where they set, I think it's the Thames, where they fill it with like some kind of advanced fire accelerant. They don't call it gasoline, but they set that on fire. Did you take that as like a Gorgo nod as well?
I was thinking that. Yeah, it did feel like Gorgo. I also am surprised for 3 books it's perfectly paced. I know they're big oversized issues, but still.
No, it's very well paced. It's very well paced. They also had it like, because it moves fast. It's not slow. Like as I'm going through this stuff, it moves fast. They also managed to like hook up basically all the power in Paris and send it into the Eiffel Tower, so that like Godzilla's drawn to it. They put people on top of there with like early contraptions for flying, kind of like gliders. Which actually, that was like a real thing where a dude tried that and just plummeted to his death. So I thought that was interesting that they put that in there. But that's more or less how book 2 goes. And as we get towards the end of book 2, the time traveler says, like, we tried all these things and they failed, but there's one thing that we didn't try before because it was too dangerous or too dark a path to take, right?
Yeah. And
that, go ahead.
And that's working with Dracula.
Right, working with Dracula, who's drawn great in this. You know, again, stylized, but like is not like the debonair Dracula you might have seen in a lot of films. This is a very horrific looking character, right? Where he's like devilish looking face. He's got a hint of the fangs and stuff like that. And there's he agrees to help him. He mentions like, oh, I come from a long line of like hunters, you know, type of thing. And he's approached by Sherlock Holmes, who like brings up the events of his book and mentions how like Van Helsing went to prison for supposedly killing you, and Dracula's like, yeah, he missed my heart. And then I like this, like they kind of have like a brief stare off, and I took it as like, if you've ever seen the Robert Downey's Sherlock Holmes, one thing I think they did well is sort of like when he's dealing with Moriarty, they'll do these scenes where like they're having this conversation not out loud, and it's just in their head and playing it out. And I thought that's kind of what they did here between Sherlock Holmes and Dracula, where just like they stare at each other, and Holmes just goes to try to kill him. Dracula evades him, and then puts the bite on Holmes.
Yeah. Which I was not expecting them to like vampire Holmes, but
No, I wasn't either. So he turns him into a vampire, and then, as is per Dracula's uh, modus operandi, he also falls for Daisy, the love interest of Gatsby, takes her back to Transylvania. As this is going on, because this will become important later, Godzilla continues to go across the world, and in doing so, stomps across the Great Pyramids of Egypt, right?
yeah.
Which leads to another character coming into play.
Yeah. Do you want to say it?
I can or you can. I don't want to dominate the whole thing.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So he stomps through the pyramids, and then we pick up book 3 with the destroyed pyramids, and the mummy comes out, and there's archaeologists that are like, man, is he going to come after us? And one's was like, no, he has like a curse for like if he's disturbed, he's going to take out the person who disturbed him. And the other archaeologist is like, so he's going after Godzilla, and the mummy just starts like trotting after Godzilla.
Yeah. And then we get to book 3 where it's Godzilla versus the Universal Monsters.
Which I did not see coming, and it's zany. It's very zany. Let me continue to emphasize that. But I thought it was a ton of fun. So go ahead, you talk about book 3, man.
So Godzilla comes to Transylvania, Daisy's under the thrall of Dracula, and Dracula has made all the monsters into kaiju. I'm talking Frankenstein, the Mummy, and Wolfman. All we're missing is Mr. Hyde and the Invisible Man, and we got something.
Yeah, he turns him into, just real quick, he turns him into a kaiju because he also had taken over the time traveler, like hypnotized it from the time machine, who brought back this ring. I could not figure out what this is a reference to, but it's like a cube ring that can make things giant, basically.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, that does feel like a reference to a book, but I just can't think of it.
I can't either, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so Godzilla, did you ever think we'd get a comic where we'd have Godzilla fighting something akin to the Universal Monsters?
I did not, but I loved it. Because, like yourself, I'm a big fan of the Universal Monsters, right? Like, we've done numerous videos talking about them. So I never thought we'd get a comic like that, but to see it come to fruition was, the little fanboy in me really enjoyed it, I'll say. What did you think?
I really loved it. I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it was vastly well done. I figured...
Because we get, go ahead.
No. I thought the fight was pretty cool. And again, I know like the running thing is Godzilla contractually can't lose a fight, but it is like still at least you make the fight interesting, right? Godzilla versus Marvel.
Yeah, really. Well, we had Thor.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was interesting because we got Godzilla versus a giant Frankenstein, which was an unmade film. Everybody knows about that. That would eventually morph into King Kong versus Godzilla, and Frankenstein conquers the world. Additionally, we get Godzilla versus a giant Wolfman from the unfinished fan film, if you will, and then just for the heck of it, throw in there a giant Dracula and a giant mummy as well to fight Godzilla.
Yeah, it's so cool. Again, Tom just goes for it in the entire book, and then at the end we get Kaiju Gatsby.
The Great Gatsby, yes. So it's basically we get to the point where Dracula and his monsters are just getting beat down by Godzilla. So with Daisy under Dracula's thrall, he asks her to use the ring to enlarge him even more so to make him like a super kaiju. She goes to do so. Gatsby jumps in a way and then not only grows but becomes like He-Man jacked.
Yeah.
Grows to the giant size. And then is powerful enough to the point where like Godzilla hits him with a full-on blast and Gatsby just walks through it to close Godzilla's jaws.
It is it's just a wild scene right there. The whole comic, it just goes, fuck it, everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah, they really do. So you kind of have to roll with that as you're reading the story and be like, okay, we're just going jumping a shark here and having fun with this at this point. Even like Godzilla defeats Dracula by looks like throwing him into orbit, maybe, because like he's like thrown to a point where he can be in the sunlight. What did you, or at least thrown across the horizon at the very least? What did you take that as?
I took it as he was throwing him into the sun. Like that's how I viewed it. Yeah.
It was crazy, and then apparently the fire blast from Godzilla restores Gatsby to normal size at the end.
Yeah. So, and Godzilla just walks away. He just wins. Like, that's the thing.
He just walks away. Like, one like question I had is, what happened to Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and the Mummy? They just kind of like disappear.
Yeah, I had that thought too. I'm like, wait, are they still giant or not?
Yeah, it was totally left unclear. Like one panel, like I guess if Gatsby shrank back down, they could have as well. But a panel just showing that would have been fine. And I thought it would have been funny if like Frankenstein and the Wolfman just went about their business, but the Mummy's still pissed, and you see Godzilla just like stomp him out like a cigarette type of thing. Would have been neat.
Yeah. So it was all in all a great comic, and it makes me wonder if we could get a sequel and who would be in it. Personally, I'd like to see. Maybe we could. This is where we get Captain Nemo and have Godzilla fight like the giant squid.
So I think we could definitely get a sequel. From what I could find, this sold pretty well. I mean, like you said, I enjoyed it, right? I would definitely recommend it to any of our fans who haven't read it yet, right?
Yeah, especially if you're like a fan of literature.
Yeah, which I am. I've read all those books before just because I like them. But I think if we get a sequel, this is what I would do, Tyler, and Captain Nemo would work in this setting, H.P. Lovecraft, and give us something that we've never like officially gotten, Godzilla versus Cthulhu at the end.
Yeah, but we got that in a comic that was exclusive to Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Get it in like a much broader.
Yeah. I would say Cthulhu would be cool. I would even say, like, maybe instead of Cthulhu, how about Godzilla fights the Martians from War of the Worlds?
Also would be cool. Would also be a great idea. Yes. We've certainly seen many cool comic crossovers with that. Like Superman War of the Worlds is one of my favorite Elseworld stories, where you get like the first appearance Golden Age Superman fighting off the Martians. I could see Godzilla doing the same type of thing, and obviously it would track with Godzilla's fought off Exilians and black hole aliens. Like aliens and Godzilla are no stranger to each other, right?
Yeah. I think that would be really cool. I think also you could have maybe Godzilla like being hunted by what's the character's name? Quartermain.
Quartermain would be cool. Yes. I could see that. I could see Count Zaroff from The Most Dangerous Game. Like, what's a more dangerous game than Godzilla to turn him down?
Absolutely.
Professor Challenger would fit well in from like The Lost World. You know, there's plenty of other interesting public domain characters you could put in there. My initial thought would be like, well, how do you make them like a credible threat to Godzilla? But I gotta give Scioli credit. Like, it wasn't a walk in the park for Godzilla to defeat these characters. Like you said, the fight scenes were cool. And once we get a giant Great Gatsby, I guess nothing's off the table.
Yeah. So maybe we could get like Hulk, like Kaiju Mr. Hyde, and maybe even like Phantom of the Opera or The Invisible Man.
Yeah. There are plenty of public domain characters who would be interesting in that setting.
Hell, you could get Godzilla versus Popeye now.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, you could get Godzilla versus Popeye. He eats some radioactive spinach or something. Anything there could work. But I think another interesting thing is, my daughters read this comic and they enjoyed it, and then they're like, well, I kind of know these characters, the public domain characters, because they are so well ingrained, but it made them want to go back and read some of the original books. Like my oldest daughter's reading Dracula right now and loving it, because if you've never read it, it's a fantastic novel.
That's amazing.
But, yeah. I'm wondering if that would have a similar effect on other people, kind of hoping so, because there are so many of those characters they're well known for a reason. You know, everybody knows Sherlock Holmes and Dracula and Frankenstein for a reason, but a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to read the original novels. You know, we just kind of know them more from the Universal Pictures, for instance, like you had said. Yeah.
I think that would be that would be neat, and I'm sure you're probably going to use this in your English class, Matt.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll definitely be discussing this at some point in my class. My brother definitely is as a literature teacher, so he's I think going to utilize that as a like a fun activity. He was telling me like before spring break this year or something like that, which would be really cool for the students, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else to say other than it was a surprise. I thought this book could have easily crashed and burned. That's the other thing. Like,
yeah.
Tom could have easily f this up and not make it work. But thankfully, his artwork and like the vision he had works perfectly.
No, it did. I know, like when it was first announced, you and I were like in a chat with a couple other friends, and we were all like, "How is this going to work? Like, what is the Jay Gatsby going to do against something like Godzilla?" But like as you said, the story was set up in a way where like things do become a bit zany and like you said, throw in the kitchen sink. But because of the pacing of it and how skillfully established it worked, I think his artwork plays into it a lot. Where like as you're looking at it, the artwork, well, it fits the story. It's not like hyper realistic, so it doesn't feel like it's you know, the artwork doesn't take you out of the zaniness of the story. But overall, yeah, I was. It's one reason I kept like kind of hounding you that I wanted to review this. I didn't think that this would come out so well, and it really did. It came out to be a very entertaining read.
It absolutely did. So yeah, I'm glad I finally got my hands on it. It was really good. It was shockingly good, and it just kind of shows that this new era of Godzilla crossovers that we're getting allowed to we may get something more unique. Like again, Godzilla and Ninja Turtles. Who thought we'd get that? Except everybody. But still, this kind of shows that like they're willing to do something unorthodox in the future with Godzilla in these crossovers.
Yeah. It also made me, as I was reading it, look back and be like, how did 50% of the Marvel crossovers miss so bad when we were able to take characters like freaking Sherlock Holmes, the Time Traveler, the Great Gatsby, and Dracula, and make them work. Oh, by the way, too, fantastic job with the covers on these two. Like, I love the cover for issue 1 is a Fantastic Four homage to Fantastic Four #1, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I really dug that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like you said, hopefully this leads to more interesting crossovers and really helps get my hopes up for things like the Ninja Turtles one that it could be good. But overall, like you said, I really do hope we get a sequel of some kind. I really do.
Yeah. And it works too because you don't have to pay anybody. That's the beauty of public domain.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Listen, I write for Tales of the Shadowmen, which uses specifically public domain characters, and it's really fun to do. And like the guy had a great idea, the publisher, because like you said, you don't have to pay for them, so you can write all these crossovers with public domain characters, and like it's perfectly cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you've read this, comment below. Let us know what you guys thought of Godzilla Monsterpiece Theater. Matt, thank you so much for guest starring.
Thank you for not getting too mad at me for hounding you about it. I appreciate it.
No. It's just life got in the way to get the book. Yeah. Anyway, so once again, just comment below. Let us know. And other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.